Like one area right now, like worth watching is like Sudan and the whole Arabian Nubian Shield. There's a lot of potential there, but like investors will look at a place like Sudan, and it's a very scary place,
Yeah.
and things can go bad, really quickly. So you have to assess your risk tolerance and kind of decide how much capital you really want to throw at this, because on one sense, it is kind of a scary place to be, but it is very prospective and relatively underexplored. So there's huge upside there as well. So that's kind of how I approach it. I tend to go after stories where I think the reward far outweighs the risk involved.
Hmm.
And for the most part, I'm like Nick. I would say I'm as much a pioneer as him, because I don't go to regions that have never been drilled at all. But
Hmm.
I like areas outside, I guess, of Canada and Nevada, because for the most part everybody's in Canada and Nevada, and they've been drilling for decades. I mean, I'm not saying you can't find anything there as well. I'm kind of more drawn to, and I see more appeal and allure in these regions like the Arabian Nubian Shield or the Birimian Greenstone Belt, or in Guyana, right? Just I see so much land there and just a lot of upside. So that's why I'm kind of focused on those regions.
I have to follow it up. So, disclosure: I do not pay Jay to promote all the stuff that I love. I mean, it's funny because there's so much overlap with like all the things I'm interested in and I own. But yeah, we are pretty much on the same page, like you mentioned, with this stuff. But I have super high risk tolerance. Do not just jump into all this stuff, because most of the typical, I mean, even like veteran person in this industry, they would not touch many of these countries. But that's what we try to do, is push that forward. But he mentioned so many good things. I just wanted to bring up a couple points. This is a complex industry. People do not know what's going on. I just think it's one really really tough point for me to pick up on, because I had to lose a lot of money for it to really pound home. The developers versus explorers. I mean, like even with all the positives, at least that I see in a place like Africa, this gets back to the geology. So yeah, Rubicon, that is like textbook, this cycle, bottom of the cycle, like disaster. That might be the biggest. Well, there've been a couple not as big but serious issues in West Africa. Like I lost money on Orezone, and I lost a little less money on Cardinal. Orezone is in Burkina, Cardinal is in Ghana. Both of those might work out, but like geologically, these were supposed to be much simpler. And like, I mean, I talked to people who are supposed to be experts on this, and even they, kind of got confounded. I mean, those are not my picks. Like, this is me listening to other people, and it's still my responsibility. But that just shows like you could do all these things and think you're doing it the right way, and you still get screwed over. So I mean, like those weren't total disasters, but like that is something that I am very cognizant of. But this is something wouldn't say I discovered, but this is really, I think this is going to be more and more of an opportunity. People think of explorers as being higher risk than developers, but the thing is, when you're an explorer, you don't have to deal with having all these expensive studies and going by all the rules, and the value creation is immediate. Like you might find gold, copper, or uranium like overnight, and that will be reflected immediately in the stock price. And if it's from a very low level, you can immediately take money off the table and get your free ride, sell half on a double, or just sell something. And with developers, oftentimes the value is already, pushed up. Like I'll give you an example with Orezone. I should have bought, at a lower level, but I was thinking, acquisitions coming. It's okay to buy expensive. Well, they get a study come out, and it just didn't work out. And, overnight it does the opposite. It drops like, I think it was like 30 or 40%, and it hasn't come back. And, it might still work out, but that catalyst is over. It's not getting acquired overnight. I mean, maybe it's going to happen later, but like it's amazing how you talk to people in this industry, and so many of them, they will tell you developers are less risky than explorers. I disagree. That is not well-known knowledge, and I think I'm glad Jay brought up a lot of points, because it made me think of, that's one of the big things I've learned, that it's more complicated. And then another point on geopolitical risk, it's incredible. Venezuela was the hot place in the late 90s. I mean, that's where that's Robert Friedland was there. And don't let anyone tell you Robert Friedland's always a genius. He's had lots of failures. I mean, and that's not to put him down, but he doesn't know where the Democratic Republic of Congo is going. He will tell you it's better than anything in West Africa, or better. He doesn't know. And Venezuela was not just about geopolitical risk. There was actually there were some huge discoveries, but during that time there was a boom, and the actual drilling didn't work out. But look today, who would touch Venezuela? Like with a
nobody.
It's just nobody. But Guyana at that time was a lot worse. I mean, they were struggling a lot more, and I just think that's fascinating as a regional case study. Total flip over 20 years. And I'm not saying Guyana is going to be the best place ever, but I see positive momentum in Guyana. And that's why Jay and I like talking about it, and we own some things there. And so that shows, you might not see it year to year, but over 10 or 20 years, if you look back at the history, young people, they would be shocked to think that Venezuela was actually one of the top emerging jurisdictions. I mean, yeah, nobody today. So that shows, that aspect of it is so important to understand. And it's actually just fascinating to read back through each cycle and see which countries are moving up and which ones are moving down. So sorry, I just had to comment on those things because they're really interesting points that Jay brought up.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you brought all that up, and it just goes to show how unpredictable this stuff really is. When you think you have something like pinned down and nailed, I mean, it can turn on you. I mean, it's a very humbling business, I think, for everybody involved. And I like that you brought up the whole Orezone and Cardinal kind of fiascos that they're working through right now. Those happened in West Africa. Rubicon was in Red Lake in Ontario. It can happen anywhere. Is basically what it comes down to. So you can never know for certain with this game, and that's why it's so important to stay up to date with all the news and I mean just not just news pertaining to the individual mining companies that you're investing in, but just news surrounding the countries and all the geopolitical stuff going on there as well. It's not in case it wasn't clear already with the whole mining game, especially if you're going with early stage exploration and development stories. I mean, these type of investments are not buy and hold forever. You don't just buy it and just let it sit there. I mean, you really have to keep tabs on it. I mean, you don't have to do it every day, but you should probably do it at least once a month just to make sure things are still moving in the right direction.